Good afternoon, everybody. We hope you're all having a great Thursday. Before I hand it over to our speakers, I'm going to go over just a couple housekeeping items. First of all, the screen that you're seeing is completely customizable, so you can move things around, you can make them bigger, smaller, really whatever is going to make this a more enjoyable experience for you. And so feel free to move things as you would like. You will also notice a chat box on the right side of your screen if you haven't already. Feel free to share anything, share thoughts, ideas, anything of that sort during the presentation. We love hearing from you. And then on the other side of your screen, there is a Q&A pane. We are going to have a Q&A at the end of today's presentation, try and get through as many questions as possible. So again, submit questions throughout the entire presentation, and we'll see how many we can get through at the end. And then lastly, all attendees today will receive a follow-up email with a recording of today's webinar, as well as the slides, and then just some other really great materials for you to check out. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox in the next couple of days. And I think that's all I have. So got through beginning boring stuff, and Drew, I'm gonna hand it off to you to get us started.
Thank you so much, Molly. For those who don't know, which is probably most of everyone on here, my name is Drew Pace, and I am a CSM manager, which is a title that is wrought with redundancy. So a customer success manager. I support a team of CSMs here at Quantum. So the first thing I want to do is kind of review our agenda for the day and get us kind of slated for starting here. We're going to kick off first by sharing a bit about Quantum Workplace and what we do. We're going to spend most of our time hearing from my friends at Seacoast Bank on their successes and learnings when it comes to mobilizing their teams around employee engagement. We'll do a quick walkthrough of some new features we just released that help address the pain of mobilizing managers and teams around engagement. And we're hoping to save a few minutes at the end where you can send in your questions for Seacoast or for Quantum. So the first thing I want to do is introduce our friends on the Seacoast team. We have Olivia Kirchman and Angel Birch.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. And thanks again for inviting us to join today. My name is Angel Birch. For Seacoast, I lead our learning, leadership development, and associate communications team. A little bit about Seacoast. We are a Florida-based bank, nearly 100 years old, with a very deep and rich culture focused on helping people improve their lives and building a better community. I'm going to pass it over to my teammate, Olivia.
Hey there, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join us. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Olivia Kirchman. Like Drew said, I am an HR business partner at Seacoast. I have the pleasure of supporting most of our customer-facing lines of business, and I also get to do the fun stuff around associate engagement. So I lead the bank's associate engagement strategy, and Angel and I partner very closely throughout the year to ensure our associate engagement and performance management strategies are aligned and in sync and enabling the success of one another's.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you two.
Thanks.
Before we dive all the way in, I just want to share a bit about Quantum Workplace and what we're all about to help set the stage for this topic on the whole. Essentially, Quantum Workplace, what we do, we partner with organizations and HR teams to create cultures of employee success. Those cultures of employee success prioritize three critical components: experience, impact, and magnetism. First, you need to create an engaging experience by listening, understanding, validating, and then improving on what matters most. You also need high impact employees and teams where everyone understands the role they play in driving success. And you need a magnetic culture that attracts and retains, probably one of the most important pieces, the best talent. Each of these pieces are important on their own, but the real magic happens when they're all working together. Together, they help organizations drive employee and business success. Today, we're spending most of our time in the experience bucket. A common challenge in creating an engaging employee experience is getting the buy-in for your managers, the buy-in of your managers and teams. But you can't rely on a top-down approach to engagement. You need everyone to feel invested and to participate. At Quantum, we recently released a new ebook last month that takes a deep dive into how to leverage employee listening and surveys to optimize your employee experience. If you're looking for tips in this area, this resource is jam-packed with insights and frameworks from our team. You can access it in the resources tab on your screen. Let's dig in with our friends at Seacoast. They're here to share their story around getting everyone to buy in to employee engagement. I have been lucky enough to work with them from their start at Quantum, and so I know that they have been prioritizing employee listening for quite some time. But I am curious to hear you two answer the question in the slide here. What are some challenges you've faced as you've evolved your employee listening strategy over these past few years?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. We've had a lot of fun in the years working together to get to where we are today. So I'll kind of paint a little bit of a picture for you. Seacoast really started paying attention to employee engagement and employee listening back in 2015. So that's the first year we launched our first ever full employee engagement survey. And to be quite honest, back in 2015, engagement at Seacoast started as an HR-led activity. And we feel like we put a lot of work in place to be able to have it slowly progress over the years to not just a manager or a leader priority, but a priority that every associate feels ownership around across the entire bank. And honestly, that took a lot of time, a lot of buy-in from our CEO, our senior leadership team, from individual managers to get to the stage and be able to see that change in ownership to where it is today. And we'll talk more about kind of what we've done to get to that point. So as we've evolved since 2015, we've continued with an annual engagement survey, but we've also leveraged several other listening mechanisms. So strategic pulse surveys, life cycle surveys, manager and associate one-on-one meetings that I'll actually talk about more in the next slide.
Awesome. Liv, thanks for sharing those pieces. You know, I want to outline one of the greatest challenges that we've had over the years has been our aggressive M&A strategy. Our population alone at Seacoast, our associate population, has tripled since 2015 when we first started on this journey. We know that even with all the work that we've done over the years to overcome the challenges that you talked about and those related to maturing the maturity of our organization as it relates to associate engagement and our strategy, with each new acquisition, we have the opportunity to reinforce, to reinvent, and to reframe associate engagement. It's an ongoing challenge, not in a negative way, in a really positive and optimistic way, but it is an ongoing challenge that differs with each bank that we acquire. So our advice here is start where you are. Recognize that it's not going to be perfect. Won't ever perfect. You're not going to arrive. It is truly an evolution. When we started with the focus on gaining the buy-in that Olivia shared, that led to an organization feeling a sense of ownership. And that has really put us on a good path to evolve our associate engagement strategy over the years. You know, early on, there was the need for HR to own the process. We were okay with that in the beginning, knowing that the longer term strategy was for that broader ownership, but we really had to focus on that buy-in to get there. We went from focusing on data collection, right? What are the numbers? What does it say to us? To really building out actionable commitment plans. We didn't get there overnight. It continues to evolve. Some years we do it better than others. In some lines of business, we do it better than others, and that's okay. But our advice is to be comfortable with where your starting point is, while at the same time having a vision on the milestones that you're working through to mature your strategy.
I love
awesome.
that, Angel. We never arrive, even now. While we've made so much progress, there are so many times where I think both of us have kicked ourselves of, oh, we should have done that. So what do? We write it down and we do it next time. I don't think you'll ever be perfect and execute this flawless engagement strategy. We're always learning. So we'll talk more about that too. But yeah, I think that was great.
Yeah. And our quantum partners are always there to tell us it's okay. It will be okay.
It has been really fun to watch you two and your team members just like iterate on your approach and watch you grow in the use of our software and how you're listening to employees. I've really enjoyed that. And I'm glad we get to work again together today. It's quite a delight. All right. We got another question here for that Seacoast team. What are you doing to listen to employees today? And what does your survey strategy look like? And how does it help you uncover meaning?
Sure. So I'll pick apart that first item. What are we doing today to listen to our employees? So truly, thanks to the capabilities and partnership with Quantum, we feel like this was such a great investment. We've been able to create and implement a continuous learning strategy at Seacoast that measures moments that matter across the employee life cycle, with the goal of having a really solid pulse into the voice of our associates. So I mentioned on that last slide, our engagement strategy has evolved. It was a point in time annual engagement survey. Like Angel said, we were just collecting data the first few years. And yeah, it's evolved now into us leveraging 3 other listening mechanisms that I just touched on. One being strategic pulse surveys, the second being automated life cycle surveys, and the third being recurring associate manager one-on-one meetings. So I'll share a few examples of how those other listening mechanisms have created value for our organization. And like Drew said, he's been able to kind of see us evolve. We've evolved with the software. So we didn't start out doing all of these things. We started with the annual engagement survey and took a huge breath and waited about a year. And then we said, okay, maybe we'll start to dabble in some of these other feedback mechanisms. So I wanted you to just keep that front of mind. You don't need to start. There's so many bells and whistles, which I love about Quantum, that you don't necessarily need to leverage all at the same time. If you can, if you know, that's scalable, I think that's fabulous. We weren't in a position to. We were a pretty small HR department. But I'll go ahead and share a few examples of some of the other listening mechanisms that have really created value for our organization. So based on our annual engagement survey, this last survey in 2022, we recognized that employee benefits was one of our lowest scoring items. I'll pause here. I don't know if I can see anyone raise hands, or maybe you want to put in the chat. Does anyone else, is this a struggle at your organization? Is this something that may be a lower scoring item or challenge or priority for your organization? I don't know, maybe give us some color there. But I can certainly imagine that this might be a challenge for some of you on the phone, especially as the cost of healthcare continues to rise across the nation, coupled with the fact that, you know, COVID eliminated a lot of geographical barriers and enabled more individuals to pursue work from home roles with competitive benefit offerings. So I know our HR and leadership team acknowledged that, okay, this is one of our lowest scoring items. Recruiting is critical to our success as an organization. So we've got to do something to address our benefits offering to ensure that we're remaining competitive in the candidate marketplace. So I was able to look like a bit of a hero and give guidance on next steps. Okay, we heard this feedback. Now we're going to act on it in one capacity just to get us started. And I partnered with our benefits team to prepare a really short strategic pulse survey to dive in a little bit deeper following our annual engagement survey, just to learn more from our associates about their benefits expectations, right? So this was one easy way to show our associates that the organization is not just committed to making improvements based on their feedback, but hey, we heard you, and we're gonna try to do something about it. We might not know what it is yet, but we're gonna gather some more feedback, and we're gonna go ahead and see what we can do to improve this area, because we heard you. We know this is a concern, right? So that's one example of a pulse survey. I feel like I could give you so many more, and I've got a few more that are top of mind. But another example of strategic pulse surveys that we've leveraged have been around business continuity activities. So I think back even just the last few years, obviously COVID being one of those, as we addressed work from home readiness. We were able to launch a really quick pulse survey. That was a time when the organization was looking to HR for guidance the most, probably more than most organizations ever had. And we were prepared and ready with Quantum to be able to launch a pulse survey and get feedback from our associates and make sure our associates feel like they were heard. Drew and I were laughing about this when we joined the webinar. There's been some crazy weather in Florida. There always is. We're a Florida-based bank. Seacoast is, and so right before summer ends, we're already moving into hurricane season. So we've actually leveraged some pulse surveys to assess how associates might have been impacted from any storms, so we can understand where to focus relief efforts, and also kind of to look back and improve readiness for the future. So I could go on and on. So many ways to leverage pulse surveys, and it's a great resource. Some other ways we've leveraged pulse surveys and even life cycle surveys are around our learning priorities. I can see, Angel, if you want to share some of those examples around our town halls and associate satisfaction.
You bet. For any of our learning activities, think training, right? You're in the classroom for training. And of course, survey. What did associates like? What did they not like? What did they get the most out of? So we leverage the functionality in Quantum for that. If there are any learning experts out in the audience, these are our level ones. And so learning feedback is really important. And we tick and tie that with our associate engagement survey. I think that's another thing that's really important is we consider that associate engagement survey really the foundation. And from that, we've got lots of other opportunities to listen to our associates. Pulse survey, certainly the examples Olivia shared. We also have town halls several times a year. So we like to check in. Did they meet the objectives? Did associates like them? What would they like different in the future? What did they value and benefit from the most? That goes back to our associate engagement survey results. Learning feedback for sure. Development is a top priority for many associates and leaders across our organization. And so the learning feedback surveys help keep us honest. Associates tell us one time a year through the associate engagement survey how we're doing. And the learning feedback surveys help us to make sure that we're staying the course and we're not dropping, at least staying the same or getting better. And then, Liv, if it's okay, I'll talk about onboarding surveys as well. You know, associate life cycle is really important. And one of the things that we heard last year in particular was around onboarding of our new hires. It felt clunky, it felt disconnected. And managers, honestly, hiring managers felt like it was clunky too. So it's not just our new hires. And so we really focused in on that, did a lot of additional assessment, did some additional pulse surveys to gather deeper feedback from both hiring managers and new associates. And that enabled us to begin to build a stronger onboarding program to drive what we call a wow experience. And so all of these levers really help us to gather points in time information, but also point back to our foundational survey information, which is our annual associate engagement survey.
Yeah, all of this going back to our listening strategy of, there's one word that comes to mind whenever Angel was speaking, and hopefully that came through whenever I was speaking. To me, it's continuous. It's having this continuous feedback loop, not just that point in time, because we know populations change, the environment changes. So how can we create a continuous learning strategy or listening strategy? I'm sorry. A couple other opportunities that we've leveraged has been around M&A. Like Angel mentioned, we have engaged in a lot of M&A activity. We've acquired, Angel, 16, 18 banks. Mm-hmm. What's the number? Since both of us joined the organization in 2014. So we've been busy onboarding a lot of new teammates. It's been a lot of fun, really has. But pulse surveys have given us the ability to survey populations outside of our employee base. So think about those banks before the deal closes, before they're officially Seacoast associates. We're able to administer pulse surveys to get some feedback and start that continuous feedback loop, so we can pivot and make changes along the way to ensure when they do join Seacoast, it's as smooth and seamless and as positive of an experience as possible. So like I said, I can go on and on, so many different opportunities. I will share the last feedback mechanism we've worked to launch and grow is around our manager associate one-on-one meetings. This is a feature within Quantum where managers and associates, let me stop. Drew and Angel are laughing at me. So we renamed We renamed Quantum. So sorry if there's any Quantum partners on that are cringing at us right now, but Seacoast is a Florida-based bank. Most of our, think coast, most of our offices are near the water, and we call Quantum Compass. So you may hear Angel or I slip up. I've been trying real hard to call it Quantum, but our associates call it Compass because we think it's really the guiding force in their careers and in their time at Seacoast is the platform of Quantum. So I slipped up there, I'm sorry. But the last mechanism is around our one-on-one features, which enables that continuous feedback loop just between associates and managers. So we've got all these different listening mechanisms outside of our engagement survey to just be continuously hearing the voice of our associates. And let me answer Drew's last question. I didn't forget about it. He said, how does all of this help uncover meaning? So now we're able to really identify what the priorities are for our associates. So all those feedback mechanisms, all those different types of surveys Angel and I just chatted about, they provide us with actual data to validate or invalidate our assumptions and biases. So we do not have to guess and assume anymore, that's invaluable. And especially, as HR professionals, being able to lead with data helps to gain credibility, and we're able to see the most impact, right? Because we're focusing on things that matter most.
Yeah, that's awesome, Olivia. And don't feel bad for calling us Compass on here. I mean, because what I think it's I think it's a kind of a pro in the column for Quantum is that you're able to customize the platform to the point that Seacoast's been able to make it fit your organization and culture. I've enjoyed being called Compass Drew. It's a fun nickname. So don't even sweat it. It's a nice thing. So many of our customers kind of name their platform based on the initiatives that they are taking or have internally already, or have had a storied history at the organization. So yeah, I think it's just a nice thing that you can do with your platform. All
Thanks
right.
for the support.
Absolutely, always. Compass Drew is always there for you.
We know.
We'll talk more about that later.
So I've got another question here for the Seacoast friends. One of the first steps to buy-in, which is so important, is getting employees to believe in the why behind sharing their feedback. So let's talk a little bit about survey participation, the very thing by which we measure our surveys before we get to look at the analytics. So why is employee survey participation so important to you, and what strategies have you put in place to help drive it?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So we'll talk on participation first, and then I can definitely talk to strategies to help drive participation. So you'll see here, this is an overview of our participation rate over, since 2016 when we launched our first survey. And like I mentioned and was pretty transparent about, the first few years we were focused on simply gathering data. It was data collection. Let's get an understanding for what our associates are thinking and feeling. And we weren't even in a position to drive action planning across the organization. Again, I'm trying to be transparent with you. Our leaders didn't have a huge appetite for it. We were a much smaller organization growing really quickly through M&A. There were I'll put air quotes, too many other business priorities we were focused on at the time. So our senior leaders didn't want to distract from those priorities. And that's why you'll see a participation dip in 2018 to 68% of our associates, which I have to recognize isn't terrible, but from where we were, that is significant. So you need to think relative to your organization as it relates to the industry benchmarks. So we believe this dip was attributed to the fact that associates weren't seeing feedback or actionable results from the surveys that they provided, right? They're like, well, I'm taking this the last few years. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything. So I want to share with you one of my favorite stats that I leverage all the time when I'm speaking with managers. And I hope this is a takeaway for you. I might say it a few times. So research shows that employees who experience survey follow-up post-survey were 12 times more likely to be engaged the following year. So that is why next steps in the weeks following the survey are most critical. So I think that drop in participation was a little bit of an aha moment for our leadership team. Like, oh, we got to start doing something about this. We can't just keep up with this data collection and not do anything about the feedback our associates are providing. So I worked really hard with some of our other teammates to help shift the focus to really helping our managers understand the importance and impact of associate engagement as it drives business results, so they can help drive participation amongst their teams. So that's what you see on the slide here. This slide on the impact of associate engagement is one of my favorite slides and helps to answer the other part of Compass Drew's question around why engagement is important. So I'll share too, change doesn't happen overnight. We worked our way up to that 95% survey participation that we achieved last year. Over the years by gaining buy-in from our leaders around the importance of the survey, as there are real returns on having a connected and engaged workforce. I love to be able to lead with the data. So I start every single engagement presentation, whether it's with our senior leadership team or with our individual department leaders. I start with 2 slides. The first slide you don't see here, but it's just the definition of employee engagement. So we're all talking about the same thing. We're not talking ping pong tables and bring your dog to work day. Don't get me wrong, those things are so fun, but those activities aren't going to drive engagement and the connection that associates feel towards the organization and the work they do and their team, right? So that's one slide. And this slide that you see here is another slide that I always share at the top of any deck. And this slide highlights the impact, which can be positive or negative, that an engaged workforce has on our bottom line. So you can see here, and long story short, there is significant business return on an engaged workforce. We're not just talking, take a survey and we're talking HR fluff. We're talking business impact here. So I recommend not just being able to effectively communicate the business impact, of course, with sources, make sure your data is accurate. But I also recommend adjusting your conversation based on the population you're speaking to. And that can be really critical. So for example, whenever I was meeting with our senior leadership team and I showed them this slide for the first time, I really honed in on profitability. That was something that mattered most to them at the time. And I also honed in on the customer impact as well. Those were things that resonated most with that population. And then I'll pivot based on the population I'm meeting with. So whenever I'm speaking to maybe, I'll give one example. We have a customer support center, Florida-based call center. They're an awesome team. Whenever I'm speaking with those individuals and I'm talking about why the engagement survey matters, I'm touching on that 81% absenteeism. As an HR business partner, I've written a lot of disciplinary action for tardiness and absenteeism to know that that's something that's impactful for them. Theft may be something in some of your business areas that is really impactful. So you want to make sure you cater your conversations based on the population, just like you would with any other presentation. But I think that really helps to resonate with your leaders. And then the last thing I'll add before I jump into some strategies, it also doesn't hurt to share with your managers what they can gain personally from the survey. So we have a manager effectiveness category on our survey. I believe it's on all surveys, and it's like 8 or 11 survey items. We have a pretty robust survey, so ours is a little larger than others. So ours is 8 or 11 items that rate the manager's effectiveness. So I always share with managers, that's the what's in it for you. You get direct feedback from your team to not just improve your own personal development as a leader, but also to optimize your team. And one better for them, they can leverage this data in their mid-year review, their year-end review. They can say, I've got the most engaged workforce, or I've got the highest manager effectiveness, or maybe it's not the highest. Again, consider who you're speaking to. Maybe it's, I saw a 6% lift in this item. So that's showing progress in my development. That's something they want to put on their year-end review when they're speaking to their manager, because that could equate in some, maybe in some monetary recognition for them. So really speaking to kind of what you think is going to motivate that individual or that population the most. Okay, so I want to share some strategies as well. One strategy I will be launching on Monday when our associate engagement survey launches. So I thought timing was perfect here. I engage our senior leadership team. I will send them an email. Hey team, survey has launched, super excited. Make sure we're communicating to the teams, which we've already sent pre-survey communications. And what I will do pretty much every day, every other day, I will send a little scorecard snapshot by your senior leader name, right? I will list their names there. I will list the total number of associates that should have received the survey, and then I'll list the participation so we can see, I'll call out one of our leaders. We'll see, Dan's area. He's at 50% participation. That's great because we're only on the third day of our survey, and I'll track that progress through. And I'll do one better. We love some color-coded scorecards, and anything 100 or greater is teal. So if once they hit 100%, they're in the teal. If they're like 90%, I'll mark them green. If they're 70%, they'll get yellow. Anything below that, they're in the red. So now they visually see, oh, I'm in the red for a really long time. And then it's not just I'm in the red, I'm in the yellow, and everyone's already in the green. So you get to see the color coding, the competition, and it works. They'll forward that email to their team, to their direct reports to say, hey, let's make sure and I always recommend, make sure managers take the survey first, lead by example. They should be completing the survey as soon as possible. And then the next best thing a manager can do is create the time and capacity for their team to take the survey. So I think about a lot of the lines of business I support are customer facing. They're literally, we're a bank, so they're in front of customers handling transactions. So I'll let our managers know, how can you go ahead and find 10, 15 minutes and maybe a private area for your team to complete the survey. So those are a few strategies that I found to be helpful. Drive some healthy competition between the leaders, between the business units. Of course, we communicate confidentiality. And I think, whenever we're focused on the associates' feedback and making sure that they know that we're making commitments, that they're seeing actionable change. It goes back to that stat that I shared. Associates that see survey follow-up are 12 times more likely to be engaged the next year. They need to see that there's some kind of action, right? So that's what I would recommend as well. And our associates now feel like change can and will happen. So they feel comfortable sharing their feedback, maybe a little too comfortable, some of the comments. But we welcome it anyway.
That is awesome. Now, I've had the pleasure of seeing like the next survey phase and how you all work through it, but pretty much all of our attendees haven't. So once a survey closes, how are you informing and mobilizing your teams? What does that look like at each level of Seacoast?
Yeah, so we do, and I think, Drew, this is one of the first things you said. You're like, it can't just be top down. You're right. Engagement can't be top down. However, we do a top down approach to relaying results. Okay. So there's a difference there. So as far as top down approach, the second the survey closes, we'll send out a communication to our entire population saying, thank you so much for participating. We have achieved this level of participation, and we're super excited to review your feedback and share, share some highlights from the survey. So we're letting them know right away, thank you, and we heard you. That's the easiest thing that you can do, in my opinion. So get that communication drafted and ready to launch, a day or so after your survey closes. From there, we do the top-down approach. I'll look at survey results with our CHRO and usually with Angel, a couple other senior leaders, so we can get a handle from an HR perspective, and we can kind of start to see some trends before we take the survey over to our CEO. From there, we'll spend some time with him, then trickle down effect to our senior leadership team and to all of our people managers. And we support our managers as much as we can. So this is actually a slide from a manager webinar that I conduct. And this is one of the last slides. This is the expectations and next steps that we ask of our managers. Keep it really simple. Hey, review your results. Just, you got to know what your results are. And then meet with your team. Be transparent, show them the results, create commitments. And you're not in this alone as a manager. This isn't HR's responsibility to create commitments. Have that dialogue with your team and help your team come up with, hey, what are the 1 to 3 items that if we focus on the most, we'll have the most impact. So focus on a couple commitments and then monitor progress. Hey, we can adjust and change at any time. So those are really the biggest areas that we recommend and that we do on an ongoing basis.
That is awesome. All right, so to follow up on that, how has mobilizing your teams around engagement helped you and your organization? What advice would you give to other HR leaders trying to mobilize their teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. And mobilizing teams is really a critical component to the success, right? So associate engagement isn't something that you can run solo. It's not for you to own independently. It requires the entire organization to be committed and for leaders to model the behavior like Olivia talked about before. When they do this, they reinforce the value and the importance of engagement. It's not just talk. It's really how we operate. It's how we connect and keep our organization engaged. And we do that in order to gain momentum and keep momentum around engagement. Our early survey reports made us think differently about how we enable a culture that's highly engaged. And we learned that people want to champion engagement activities. They want to be a part of it. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to check a box. They really want to be involved and connected and be part of whatever the follow-up initiatives are. So we learned early on, we don't have to lead it, and they really want to. And so we let them do that. So for HR, mobilizing teams enables us to focus less on the tactics and more on the overall strategy. The role we play now is more of a consultant for our business partners and leaders. We provide them with guidance, and we collaborate on commitments. It's also allowed us to spend more time reflecting on the data, more from an enterprise-wide lens, reflecting on the data to identify trends, identify things that we might have missed had we focused on single line of business or a single function. We can really look at it from a more holistic view. We're able to then work with our executive team and our senior leaders to craft the enterprise-wide commitments, which often lead to improved programs, processes, offerings that impact all or most of us. For the organization, what we've seen is the development of leadership skills, and stronger leaders have emerged because of the way we've evolved, how we connect with them and how we mobilize our teams. When they're able to own the process rather than simply checking the box on a deliverable, they become champions of associate engagement, and that drives adoption to the mindset of their teams. And then as champions of associate engagement, they're eager for the results. They get kind of data hungry. They want to know what the results are. Olivia talked about the competition around participation, but then they're really hungry around, well, what does the data say? Now what am I going to go do with it? So they get really excited about the ability to have a clear understanding of what the drivers are for engagement of their teams. And then when leaders and their teams are aligned, it positions them for successful commitment planning activities. Finally, our culture has benefited immensely. We've always had a really strong culture, one that's collaborative and connected. And so when we began, one of our guiding principles was around transparency. We are and were, always have been, very transparent with our associate engagement survey results. We share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't hide it. It's what our associates have told us. And so we are super transparent about that. And so when we do that, our organization rallies around understanding the story and what the results are telling us. And that enables them to focus on commitments that are going to continue to make our organization a really great place to work.
That's so cool to see it, all the different layers, and that I've been lucky enough to like watch it happen at Seacoast is really nice. And now, selfishly, how has Quantum Workplace helped you on your journey, or Compass Drew? You know,
Compass Drew started the journey. Well, it was really Vince before that. Vince, if you're out there listening. But then it was Compass Drew. That's right. So, you know, we can't do any of this without the availability of our customer success managers, lightning fast responses. And I'm not just saying this because we're on a Quantum Workplace webinar, but truly for the listeners out there, this has been and continues to be a really delightful experience. So lightning fast responses, sharing of best practices, constantly sharing updates and enhancements. There's always something going on with our quirks to make the platform better, higher functioning, more enhancements. They listen to our feedback and they make things happen. It really all started from the very beginning. I talked about Vince. Vince was the person that Olivia and I connected with to see if Quantum Workplace was the platform that we needed to meet our needs. All along the way, it's always been about partnership. They've always listened to our needs, and we really feel like our Quantum Workplace partners know our business. An example, we were giggling about this earlier, but we shared early on the desire to be able to craft goals for specific roles without the need for each associate in that role to manually enter their goal. So if Olivia and I are in the same role, we wanted that goal to be sent to us rather than Olivia having to spend the time and me having to spend the time. And so here we are, absolutely thrilled that this year our Quantum Workplace partners have rolled out this bulk goal functionality. We like to think that we inspired the new capability, so we're going to take credit for it. But truly, Quantum Workplace listens all the time, again, highlighting their partnership. And they're fun to work with. I hope you've caught that being just on this webinar. They're always fun to work with. All you have to do is follow them on their social channels, and you're going to get a glimpse into the Quantum Workplace culture. They're an awesome group, and that spills into their partner relationships. I've been fortunate and grateful to be able to carry my partnership kind of to the next level, if you will. I'm honored to be a part of Quantum Workplace's Customer Advisory Board. We call it CAB. It's been a tremendous experience. It's the ability for me to connect with peers and other organizations that use Quantum's tools and resources. It's a great opportunity for best practice sharing and a forum for coaching and guidance. We will go to each other in our regular monthly meetings, just sharing what's going on in our org, asking somebody else, well, have you done this before? What did you learn from it? What are the steps I need to avoid? But it's even beyond that monthly. Brooke, I know you're on. I don't know if you know this or not, but we connect with each other through email. So outside of our regular monthly routine, and it's been really a terrific experience. So, we started with survey and goal setting functionality and very quickly adopted, like Olivia shared, the vast array of functionality that's offered. It's incorporated into our associate engagement strategy. It's how they engage with each other through recognition. And it's also how our leaders lead, connect, guide, and develop their teams. It's really super cool the way all of the functionality has come together for our organization in particular. And then lastly, our journey has been supported by the huge offering of resources, the help library, the video tutorials, the live chat feature. They're all best in class, and they're all available at your fingertips anytime you need them. The little orange chat bubble, I can't tell you how many times I use it. And there's a quirk on the other end that is kind and gracious. And sometimes it has been user error on my part, and they're totally nice about that. And other times I bring them something that they need to dig a little bit deeper in. But very responsive, always available, and super friendly. So partnership, functionality, and resources have all been highlights of the journey with Quantum.
That's awesome. I love the support team. That little orange chat box is one of the first things I show people. I'm like, it is your lifeline. If you're ever building something, you'll be amazed. Like, everyone's used to the chat boxes. We all have an internet service provider, but that chat box,
there's a real person on the other end of this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's a bot in the beginning, and then there's a quirk on the other end super fast, and they're real and they're engaging and they're connected.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for that piece, Angel. Now we'll move from your journey to some of our tools and talk about some new enhancements inside of the Quantum Workplace suite of features. Engagement for teams. We'll do a little sneak peek about that. So our new Engagement for Teams feature, it makes it easy for managers and even individuals to share and take action on their survey results. We do this by giving them a personalized summary report with an on-screen walkthrough to make sure they understand each element, recommended discussion starters and action prompts to easily move from insight to action, notifications that encourage ongoing action and follow-up on plans and commitments, plus recommended smart topics to keep conversations about engagement alive throughout the year. I'm going to briefly take a look at the 4 key places where these features come to life. First, there's the new team report. Oftentimes, the first things managers see when they get their team results is the team report. Instead of giving managers busy, complex dashboards, we give them a few key metrics coupled with an action summary focused on driving conversations and action forward. Then we have our My Engagement report, sometimes referred to as the Me report. With Quantum Workplace, understanding and action doesn't have to be owned by the manager alone. This is most evident in that Me report, which is designed to be given to every individual contributor that completes an engagement survey. This gives individuals incentive to provide their feedback and actionable advice on how they can think about their own personal engagement and what they can own. Then there's our action planning tool, which I love. The concept of shared action is carried into our action planning tools, which can be configured to allow collaboration on plans across teams, which is really helpful at Quantum, where we have a lot of teams that work very closely together. Our action library also provides suggestions for how teams can start taking action when they might get stuck, and allows organizational action initiatives to be cascaded from HR to all or selected teams. As a bonus, admins get full visibility to which teams are taking action to help drive accountability. Further, we have lightweight one-on-ones. An even better way to drive accountability is with ongoing conversations using our lightweight one-on-one tool. We make this available to any customer so that managers can set up recurring one-on-ones with each of their direct reports and track their conversation topics and action items over time. It will also suggest smart topics related to engagement throughout the year to help keep engagement-related topics and employee needs top of mind. That is really the Teams report itself. I love that it's coming out. People are starting to use it. They're loving it. I think one of the things that I love most, I love the one-on-ones tool most. So I really like that we're incorporating lightweight one-on-ones to kind of extend out from our engagement survey analytics. And my favorite thing about our platform is being in a one-on-one, opening up a snapshot and finding out what the heck we talked about last month, because we all have memories that are about 3 days long. And so that's really saved me and helped me support my team in ways that I couldn't have before. So yeah, that's just something that I really enjoy about Quantum. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to my friend Molly to lead us into the old Q and the A.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you, all 3 of you. Thank you so much. That was incredible. Just all the insights and information and just everything you shared. So thank you so much for all of that. Like Drew mentioned, we're going to move into the Q&A part with the time that we have left to try and get through as many questions as possible. You can still add questions while we're going through here, so don't be afraid to drop one in the Q&A. See if we can get to it. So the first question, I'm going to toss this one, Angel, I'm going to toss this one your way, the first question. Okay. So I've asked for our 2022 survey results and was met with resistance as managers aren't providing the full results without context. Is this typical?
So if I understand it right, it's there's an associate who's asked for the results and the manager has said, no, not giving them to you. So
sounds like
I think it might be typical. I shared earlier, we're very transparent with ours. So we share results. We share a lot of them. We share our highs and we share our lows. I think that it's my advice would be to try to understand why the no. What is it that they are trying to achieve by not sharing them? There might be an objective or there might be a directive. They might want to share it, but somebody else might be telling them, no, you can't. So maybe it's a couple of more questions to ask to better understand why the no. And it may not be a flat out no, it might be a no, not now, or it might be a no, not all of it, but we can give you some of it. So I'd recommend trying to understand a little bit more around the no.
Perfect. Okay, we're gonna keep on moving. Let's see, Olivia, I'm gonna toss this your way. Anybody wants to jump in too, feel free. But this one is, you mentioned that buy-in was a challenge early on for Seacoast. What were some of the key things that you've helped drive manager buy-in over the years, especially as you're bringing in those new managers through M&A activity?
Yeah, so what's helped with buy-in is helping our managers understand the importance and the business impact. Like I said, pulling on the heartstrings. Is absenteeism an issue in their department? Is customer satisfaction low in their area? What is it? What's the business problem? Because there's always a tie to the people. So that was one of the ways we created buy-in, and also, showing them their manager scores. Hey, you get direct feedback from the survey. So those are two things that I would consider. And then you mentioned something about especially bringing on new managers through M&A. We're able just to have a pulse of our culture. I think too, since COVID, culture has become a differentiating factor. People don't have to or need to work at terrible places anymore. So now it's a business priority to have a highly engaged workplace, one that's people feel like they can grow and develop and learn, so they stay for a while. It's not like it was maybe in 2015, 2016 when we first started, where that wasn't as much of a focus. So hope that answers.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. And then continuing kind of with that, pre-COVID, post-COVID, we've got a question here around attrition. So this person says, I'd be interested in hearing whether or not you experienced higher attrition post-COVID compared to the pre-COVID period, and if your surveys show any key data points on attrition.
Yeah, Angel, correct me if I'm wrong. You can jump in. We didn't have significant attrition. I will say we're a little bit unique. The banking industry, especially in Florida, has consolidated. You heard we've acquired like 16, 18 banks in the last 8 or 9 years. So it's consolidated greatly. If anything, we're bringing on new bankers. People aren't necessarily leaving. So we didn't really experience that. We also changed our workplace. A lot of roles that weren't remote are now remote. So we used the survey, the feedback that we got around people who were able to do their roles successfully remote for months and months. Hey, let's let them keep doing it remotely.
Yeah, I think we were really fortunate, Olivia. I agree. We did not experience it. We were all bracing for the Great Resignation, and we have not felt it. We're grateful about that. I think some of it too was timed with our CEO. We have a new CEO. After 3 generations of CEO, we passed the baton there, and with the aggressive growth strategy, our organization is really bought into that story. They want to be here when we are Florida's bank. They want to be part of that journey. They want to be part of that success, and so that has also been a part of it. And we keep ourselves honest with telling that story with our associate engagement survey results.
Awesome. Thank you both. Try and squeeze in maybe 2 more questions here. I just lost it. There we go. Drew, I'm going to toss this one to you real quick. So how does the Quantum Workplace tool batch responses for small teams for individual privacy? You able to touch on that?
That's a good question. Yeah, essentially, you can set up access to analytics in a lot of different ways. You can customize roles and define what access looks like. For the teams report specifically, you may not have a big enough team to view any kind of report based on the confidentiality threshold. That's something that we do not put in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form when it comes to our software and our commitment to confidentiality based on those settings. There are ways for those without results to be given access to maybe their manager's results. So maybe I can see how my overall team is doing. And it's a conversation that you can have with either your customer implementation manager or your CSM to decide kind of like, here's where we're at, what's the best approach to take when it comes to access roles and settings. And the nice thing is you'll be able to kind of go in there and see what it looks like and make those decisions. But when it comes to kind of individual responses, those are essentially never shown. We kind of keep it a best practice level of 5 responses to be able to see results, occasionally bringing that number down for smaller orgs. But I hope that answers the question. It really is kind of an important thing that managers really be given important data without the ability to do what we call who hunting. And what they can see and what they can't see is totally within the admin's power of the tool.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that.
You bet.
That actually took us right to time. So in the sake of everyone's calendars and just making sure that we aren't keeping you too long, we'll end it with that question. But thank you both so much, Olivia and Angel, for joining us. Drew, you as well. We really appreciate all of the wisdom, and thank you to everybody who attended and joined us this afternoon. We hope you have a great rest of your Thursday and a great rest of your week. So thank you all.
Awesome.
Thanks
For
Thanks,
having
everybody.
us.
And thanks for joining.
Have fun out there. Yeah.